Diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that's been forced down the throats of the West for a very, very long time. It's another form of affirmative action, that being the racially biased hiring practices, which act as a form of anti-white discrimination, making sure that you are more diverse, which always translates to having less white people working in your business.
It also discriminates against East Asians as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But that's more of an accidental side effect.
It is, yeah.
Whereas the intended reason is always to make sure that you've got less white men in your business. But this has been attracting a lot of pushback recently. So last year there was the Supreme Court decision against Harvard, and I think it's the University of North Carolina, where they said that you can't implement these kinds of affirmative action rulings anymore. You can't do this because it's actually in breach of the plain text of the Civil Rights Act, which is ironic because the Civil Rights Act, as it's been implemented in law from probably the 70s onwards, has been something that's been used to attack businesses' freedoms to hire based on merit, whereas now it's being turned around by the Supreme Court and saying, well, actually, no, you can't just use it to say we're not going to hire white people. And this is something that's been really bothering businesses, because businesses, more than anything these days, don't want to make money. They don't want to make good things. They don't want to make products that appeal to consumers. They want to discriminate against Americans and English people.
Well, the reason for this, I'm not sure if you're going to get into it, but they're a very sort of, with the carrot and stick side of things. Not only the stick is sort of PR and public opinion. If they're outed as being like, you've got too many white people, it makes them look bad and might damage their custom. But on the other hand, the far more seductive thing, the carrot, is that companies like BlackRock reward them heavily with investment. Companies can live and die by how much they can pursue that carrot from companies like BlackRock.
Absolutely. But even BlackRock has started to change its tactics a little bit here. And there's also the fact that business executives tend to get bonuses dependent on how well they're able to hit their diversity and inclusion targets each year, which gives even the people at the highest rung of the ladder an incentive to continue pushing these very harmful practices. And so, what's been going on because of all of the backlash? You've got some Republican governors in American states saying that we want to legislate against this. Well, has business decided to turn around, big business, and say, well, we'll stop doing it then? No. What they're trying to do in a very underhanded way is rebrand it in a way to slip it under the rug so that it's still there, but the people who've been paying attention to it and reporting on it don't know. Now, I'm going to be covering some stuff that people have been trying to say to us for a while. You need to cover this, and I'm not going to cover it in incredible detail, but I'll go over this article first and then go over some of the reporting that's going on with Bridge, which seems to be another rebrand of this to try and sweep it under the rug and get it under our noses without people noticing what's going on. So there's some very interesting examples given in this article about how it's being rebranded. So last year, they say, Eli Lilly's annual shareholders letter referenced the acronym for diversity, equity, and inclusion 48 times. This year, DEI was nowhere to be found. In March, Starbucks got shareholder approval to replace representation goals with talent performance for executive bonus incentives. At Molson Coors, people and planet metrics have displaced environmental, social, and governance, that's ESG goals. And the acronym DEI has disappeared altogether. As they rebrand programs and hot-button acronyms, they're reassessing decades of old anti-discrimination strategies and rewriting policies that once emphasized race and gender to promote inclusion for all, which is a distinction without a difference, clearly. It goes on to say in here that you've got the chief executive for the Society for Human Resource Management, Johnny C. Taylor Jr., said that practitioners of DEI and its antecedents traditionally have focused on improving representation for historically marginalized groups, believing that the magic bullet was diversity. We underestimated that inclusion was the real challenge. So this, again, seems like a distinction without a difference. But if I was going to try and draw out what he means here, just to finish off what he says, now people are saying not only should we probably call it something different, so it's all PR, we should probably evolve it. So if I'm to draw out what he's trying to say here is basically we've got these people through the door, we've hired all of the ethnic minorities. Now, how do we get them more actively involved in the business? How do we get it so that they're in positions of power for themselves? Because, of course, there was the Bloomberg article that came out earlier this year talking about how, following the George Floyd riots, which is where a lot of this stuff really kicked into the next gear, they did go on this massive hiring binge of ethnic minorities, particularly blacks and Hispanics. But what you found is if you broke the data down, it was all on the ground level, menial labor jobs, data entry stuff if you're going into a big business that was a tech job, for instance. It wasn't any of the big executive positions. In fact, some of those actually reduced in their ethnic minority quotas. But what this seems to be is saying, okay, we've got these people in on the ground floor. How do we push them up the ladder artificially?
Of course, the real concerning thing about this is not only that it's discriminating against, white and Asian people, it's also that the only way that they're going to get these people in positions of power is if they promote them on grounds other than merit, which is concerning because, of course, that undermines whatever they're doing. And if it's, say, something like Boeing, for example, do you want your plane falling from the sky? Do you want someone who's like, do you want a former armed robber flying your plane? I don't know.
He repaid his debt to society, damn it. Who are we to judge him? Give him a chance.
Well, it is going to have real world consequences. And the truth is that, a lot of people are in top positions in the past because they were the most qualified. If you go via merit, if you hire people based on their qualifications and experience, you get a better class of person than if you hire them based on their skin pigmentation.
Of course.
Who'd have thought?
But again, they actually mention the Supreme Court ruling in this article, and they go on to say that 6 months after the ruling, the employment law firm Littler Mendelsohn reported that 91% of the 322 executives surveyed said the ruling had not lessened their prioritization of DEI. In fact, 57% that they had expanded their programming in the past year. So they saw that, and they saw that as a political move against their preferences, and they decided that what they needed to do was push even harder, essentially going against the letter of the law that had been put down by the Supreme Court, disobeying court rulings and saying, we're going to do this even more. Because really, what are the consequences going to be for them unless people take them to court?
Well, the consequences are worse for them if they actually follow the law, because the financial incentives are already put in place outside of government, outside of the judiciary, for them to follow these sorts of initiatives.
Absolutely. And so instead of referring to DEI, Taylor switched to calling these efforts, and he's going to get some big brownie points for originality here, IED. He just reversed the letters, pushing the focus on inclusion.
What an explosive rebrand that is.
I know.
Improvised explosive device. That's going to go down well. We've got new IED initiatives in Boeing.
Oh no. No. It's inclusive explosive devices. They're gonna, they
kill everyone.
Those memes where the Americans are bombing the Middle East with the rainbow flags on the bombs and hashtag BLM. That's what we're going for here. But the focus on inclusion. SHRM, the Human Resource Association, heads changed the name of its annual DEI conference to Inclusion 2023. So these are all just very clumsy rebranding. A growing number of companies, including language app Duolingo, JetBlue, and Molson Coors, so you can't even drink a refreshing Coors Light anymore without getting the gay.
Not Duolingo. How am I meant to break out of my British stereotype and learn other languages?
See, that's why you just don't. Foreigners have to speak English. Simple as.
Speak it more slowly.
Yeah, and loudly.
It's worked for us before.
Uno biro, por favor, lass. They're now listing DEI as a risk factor in shareholder reports or removing mentions of diversity goals outright. Estimated in here is that 35 to 40% of large cap companies have some DEI targets in their executive bonus criteria, as we mentioned. Betsy McManus, a spokeswoman for Starbucks, said the company has a goal of achieving racial and ethnic diversity of at least 30% at all corporate levels and at least 40% at all retail and manufacturing roles by 2025 in the United States. Real inclusion, and this is where you get into more of the corporate BS talk, requires intent, and diversity creates stronger communities and workforce. Still, I've never seen any empirical evidence to prove that, except for, of course, evidence provided by organizations like, I don't know, the Black and Hispanic Alliance for Diversity.
Do you know what this reminds me of? Real inclusion has never been tried.
Actually, you are
Real
right.
Communism has never been tried, but it is now.
Yeah, we hired 50 black guys, but they're all cleaning the toilets. How can we get them to corporate executive jobs by the end of next year?
You'd be surprised there's less of a difference, though.
I suppose so. How good are you at shredding finance documents? That's all the qualifications we need. With that in mind, we continue to make improvements and changes to ensure Starbucks remains diverse, inclusive, equitable, and accessible company. Eli Lilly scuttled DEI from its proxy statements, and it eliminated a section on progress, but they still tie executive compensation to general goals of fostering diversity. In a statement to the Post, the company said it removed the references to DEI to avoid redundancies in reporting. So what I can assume is that if we keep putting this on our documents, news reporters who disagree with this kind of practice will pick up on it and report on it. So we're just going to change the name of it.
So entertain a little flight of fancy here. This might be a spurious correlation, but as diversity has gone up, whistleblower deaths have gone up as well. Just food for thought.
I wasn't actually aware of that. Is that true?
For legal reasons, I don't know. Other people have been saying so.
Oh, all right, okay, that's interesting. But then we go into the main subject, which is the bigger rebranding that I've had people telling me about, saying I need to look into this, called Bridge. Now, Josh, you're going to have to control your aversion and your fight or flight reflexes here, because one of the people who's been doing a lot of the work on this and posting about it on Twitter, doing some quite interesting detailed threads, is a VTuber.
Oh!
I know.
Stop.
I know. But from what I've been told by my friend Spoon, she's one of, if not the only, based VTubers. And so I'm all right citing her. She's done a lot of good work. She's called Kirsch.
By the way, if you don't know what a VTuber is, it's people on YouTube that use a virtual avatar, normally an anime avatar, to represent themselves.
Oftentimes an exaggeratedly sexual anime avatar, as Kirsch herself does. But that's neither here nor there. We're here for the facts, damn it. We're here for the data. And all other things being equal, she's actually done some very good work looking into all of this. So there's a number of threads that she's posted, and she's talking about how, she noticed that there was this list released of the most woke companies, and she saw ones like Campbell's, the soup company, being listed up there, and she was like, what? How on earth are they so woke? How are you woke selling soup? And so she started to look into it and found that there's this big initiative called Bridge. And she says, I felt like I followed the news cycle decently close, never heard of a coalition of CEOs, CFOs, and diversity officers named Bridge. Of course, curious, I looked up what Bridge is. In searching a bit further, it appears to have been that there is a parent group also called Bridge that was established in 2021. The date stated in the parent Bridge's website for Bridge 2.0 is June 2023, which lines up with another article from PR Newswire published in August 2023 about Bridge's plans for changing DEI and their inclusion, maturity assessment, and capability building program, or IMAX. Now, obviously, Bridge 2.0, what was Bridge 2.1? If you read some of the reports that she posts in here, it seems to have been a large survey conducted around large corporations to see how they're initiating their DEI programs and what they've learned from it, what they think could be improved, trying to coalesce all of that data into something that can be turned into kind of an operating manual for all big businesses going forwards on how to properly implement affirmative action. So, That's that. In the above article, they state the program reveals 72 business practices across 5 dimensions of the workplace and marketplace and measures inclusion maturity at both the brand and company level, giving leaders a concrete assessment of where the gaps exist, a process to prioritize the gaps and capabilities required to bridge the gaps. Keep saying gaps. IMAX is currently being piloted at Campbell's, Sephora, and others, and this graph is included. Now, I think if I go a bit further. No, I have missed the particular graph. Where is it? I think it might be in one of the other ones that I did. But either way, Let me see where it is. Apologies for this, gentlemen. There is one.
And the one lady watching. We're very inclusive at Lotus.
We're incredibly inclusive. Where's the bloody thing gone? Apologies. God damn it.
Look at this graph.
Look at this graph. Here it is.
Aha.
Apologies. So,
That's
obviously, this is an awful chart, right? Okay, but can we zoom in on this at all, Samson? What can we do? Open image and use app. Yes, there we go. Here we go. So if you go down here, obviously there's a lot to take in here. But one of the main things that I noticed is down here among the content management, what do we get here?
Hang on a minute. Wait. BMI score. That isn't body mass index, is it?
How do I go? Can we go to the right a little bit? Oh, wait, no, here we go. No, that's the other way. That was left. There we go. Oh, God.
Right. How many Lotus eaters does it take to read a graph?
Here we go.
3, apparently.
Mitigates reputational risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of their main concerns in all of this. It's interesting that they are starting to really notice that this gets us really bad press. And then the rest of it is exactly what you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Implicit bias training to reduce consumer discrimination. And from what I've seen from some of the reports on this is that they're actively starting to consider charging different prices depending on your ethnic background. So if you are from a poor and marginalized community, you might get a discount for that.
So it's basically going to subsidize minorities
even further.
Yes.
Even further. Yes. Establish employee groups, DEI's criteria for compensation, anti-bias hiring practices. Leaders work to create culture of inclusion. Here's a fun one. Policy against microaggressions. I mean, seriously. And the funny thing is, one of the interviews that Kirsch posts in one of these shows that there was a black woman speaking about the Bridge Initiative to some other corporate talking head. And she points out that, I've got an entire team that has of 21 people that has no white people in it. No white people at all. Now, I'm not saying that white people make an environment unsafe or anything, but they do certain things that they think is all right. But it's actually a microaggression.
Get over it. Also, this whole thing, I beat this drum all the time that it's not about racism, it's about resource extraction. That's what a lot of politics is about. They want to extract resources from people. They want more stuff and you to have less. That's what it's all about. That's what all of the research and the people signaling these sorts of things seems to indicate that they don't care. They know they're doing this. They know that they're being dishonest, and they know that it's all about taking other people's stuff with a nice, pretty bow on top saying, oh, we're doing it for being inclusive. No, it's not. You're stealing money from people. That's what it is.
Clearly. And when it comes to the whole idea of microaggressions, what this is probably going to relate to is, you remember the Smithsonian graph of what whiteness is? And how
unfortunately
whiteness included things like objectivity, rugged individualism, having a sort of procedural way of looking at things.
It makes it sound so good, doesn't it? I'll take it.
That's the thing, is that these people who emphasize their blackness in direct opposition to that, if they're interacting with white colleagues who maybe they present an idea to, and that white colleague looks at it in an objective way, and maybe criticizes you using objective criteria rather than giving you pretty round of applause and saying, oh, that's so good, look at all the effort that you put into this. That's a microaggression now because you're imposing your whiteness on an ethnic minority.
Isn't it?
Oh, it's pathetic. It's absolutely awful. But that's what I can tell from that, which is that she says, oh, I don't have any white people in my team because when I've worked with them before, they criticize me. And actually criticizing me is a microaggression because I'm already perfect. That's how it comes across.
Well, I don't think these people realize that people just aren't very nice to each other more generally. White people are not very nice to other white people sometimes. It's not about race all the time. And I think that a lot of the time people take examples of people, pointing out the mistakes in their work when they've got a job to do is not personal. It's about doing the right thing. And I think that is certainly enculturated in a decent enough portion of the white population that it's prevalent. They're going to take it as, well, they were being racist towards me, or as a microaggression, rather than this is what people are like. This is how you get stuff done. This is how things work. This is why, we have clean water and power in, European countries, and South Africa doesn't.
Well, that was a hell of a microaggression you just threw out there, Josh.
Macroaggression.
Oh, good. Take it further. But Kirsch says in her thread, per their words, Bridge is an acronym for belonging, representation, inclusion, diversity, and equity. So the exact same thing that you would expect. And while the G in Bridge is the gap that they need to bridge with all of the aforementioned typical corporate bollocks. Further inspecting uncovers this article where the founder of Bridge 2.0, Cheryl Dijger, says, "We are trying to change the narrative of DE and I from a philosophy or even a moral imperative, which obviously it is, but hasn't gotten us to where we need to go, to figure out how we operationalize inclusion as a business practice." So again, seems to be the attempt to create an operational manual for everybody going forward, all of these big businesses, to make sure that they're getting this in as normal business practice rather than just having to do it as the result of, we've got these laws saying we need some form of affirmative action. They want it to just be normal. And I do think this will become more and more normalized as you do get the effects, the long-term effects of the affirmative action hiring practices that have already been in place, where you hire people purely based on their race, who see themselves purely based on their race, who will try and hire other people going forward also purely based on their race rather than merit. Because as we know from lots of studies that have been shown, white people are probably the least ethnocentric people in the entire world.
But we're the only people that aren't ethnocentric, yes.
Yes, whereas everybody else is far more tribal than us. So we let these people in, they get into hiring positions, and then they immediately just hire everybody who looks like them rather than evil whitey.
You see it in shops around here, don't you? In that there's one Indian gets hired, and then
it's the stereotype at this point, but it's so true.
It is true.
Yeah, you get an Indian in a hiring position, and everyone they hire is Indian, whether or not they're actually good at the job.
Mm-hmm. I go to Tesco's in Swindon, and all of a sudden, all of the staff are talking to each other in a language I don't understand. It's a bit weird, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable when this is my native country. But anyway, this is the next one here. So she mentions that this is where we come to an article that leads us down a whole of other connections in this DigiDay article titled "Why Multicultural Needs to Be Part of General Marketing Investments, Especially for Gen Z." They mention the white pages by Direct Digital Holding that shows an important trend from consumers about DEI. Effective multicultural marketing has to work together hand in hand with broader DEI initiatives. If there is no diverse culture and inclusion at an organization, the challenge is that much greater to generalize authentic multicultural work. And if you follow this to this one, she goes on to say, here we find there's also direct government involvement. Big surprise, right? Cheryl Dijger, who's the CEO of Bridge, is a participant in the information gathering and examination done in the Digital Direct Holdings research paper. Michael Rocher is also a name on this list, and he is the executive director of Elevate at Omnicom Media Group. Shared his thoughts on the white paper and what it means for brands. There was a time when brands had a Hispanic budget, black budget, etc. Today, it's everybody's responsibility to reach these audiences. Brands and agencies need to make this a business priority, and the siloed approach doesn't work anymore. Omnicom Media is a massive organization that has lots of partnerships, and Elevate is one of its DEI programs. OMG and its Elevate program were mentioned directly in the DDH research paper as well. Omnicom's LinkedIn page shows one of their partners is the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, which is this video here. Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement is partnered with the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, so we've got the Fed in there, and has representatives from the CIA attend career expos for the group.
Of course they do. I find it interesting as well that, following the US Civil War, there are now businesses with a black budget. Bit unusual.
I think that's what strange. Reconstruction was, wasn't it? But and then you've got the recent Disney expose, which has also brought some more information to light, because James O'Keefe did that expose of the Disney executive who was talking about the fact that he was worried that he won't get any business job prospects going forward because of the fact that they're finding different ways of saying we don't hire white people and white men in particular. And he was a white guy. And this was a big expose. It confirmed everything that we already know, but it's always good to get more confirmation. This article from the Wall Street Journal details the legal challenges companies face while trying to push an ideological agenda. They go on to detail how certain companies have removed specific racial and gendered language from their initiatives to make it more vague and less legally actionable. So that's going back to this Washington Post article, really. Some quotes from it include, despite the lack of financial resources geared towards these programs, 90% of HR leaders feel confident about their DEI initiatives, and 66% of companies have actually increased their focus in the last year. Despite the headlines, it continues to be a significant business driver. The future of these business programs is that they will become synonymous with the goals of your business, not defined separately. Once these beliefs have been fully integrated in influencing change, they can't ever truly go away. And again, what that really means is as soon as we get lots of very ethnocentric minorities into hiring positions, they will only try and hire people like themselves, which has been shown again and again and again, and it's a sad fact of life. The anti-DEI movement, it goes on to say, stems from politics. Of course, our position is the neutral, non-political position, and it's these evil Republicans who've made it political.
I would say that anyone who says they're neutral about pretty much anything is lying to you, and they're trying to sell you, nonsense. They're trying to push their ideology on you. We're pretty open about being, having the opinions we do. We don't say we're neutral when we read the news, because that's when someone's trying to fool you, isn't it?
Of course it is. But you may ask yourself, okay, so this is what they're trying to do to initiate all of this and through bridge into being just normal standard business practice from now on. What are the steps that they're suggesting right now to push this even further? Well, you can actually look at the Bridge 2.0 report from the survey, and it's got everything that you would expect. Who are the people who conducted it? Foreign man, women, exactly who you would expect. And you go down, you see who took the survey, where is it? The snapshots, the demographics. So here you can see, of course, what it's actually tracking, like the SPLC, Mark Potok, I think his name is just what's the US census on whites versus everybody else? How can we make sure that whites are becoming less represented in business and among staff? And every single one of them, you can see they're thrilled to be able to present the US staff. White percentage went down from 63 to 60. Leadership, 73% to 71%. Board, 67% to 65%. CEOs, the most drastic drop, to be honest, 84% to 76%. So, of course, in a value-neutral sense, you would ask yourself, how does this make a business better? Does this improve anything? Are the people who are replacing this for seemingly purely racial reasons, are they actually better at these jobs? But these people, because of course they're biased and they want to see white populations decline, they go, oh, well, this is just inherently a good thing.
It's worth pointing out here as well that even when they're disproportionately favouring minorities, like in Britain, I believe, black women are 3 times more likely to go to university than white working class men as a demographic, and yet universities are still giving preferential treatment to black women over white working class men, even though they're 3 times more likely to go to university than the opposite. So it's not going to change. There's not going to be a point where it stops. It's going to stop when they get 100% diversity, and then,
No.
That's it.
It won't stop till we're driven out of our own countries, let's be honest.
Yeah.
They also track, of course, male v female US staff. I was not aware that women so overshadowed male staff in the US, 68% to 32%, although it seems to have shifted in the opposite direction. In fact, CEOs seems to be the only metric where the percentage of men has decreased. So if you wanted to say parity was the goal, CEOs, 2021, you'd reached parity, 50% men, 50% women. Okay, so I guess we can stop now. If this is the new normal, this is what we were aiming for. No, we're very happy to present that we're actually getting an extra 3% of women as CEOs now, 47% men to 53% women, because of course, again, it's all about disenfranchising people that they see as their historical oppressors. There's bollocks about intersectionality.
So as time goes on, America is going to be run more and more by black women, and we all know how well they run a household.
Oof. But if we carry on down here to where they talk about what you should do, how you should actually get this, they've got the call to action. Oh, we need big frameworks. We need all of this. Okay. 4, develop and implement a long-term plan to ensure a diverse pipeline of talent for the global development sector. What's number one? Number one on this, how do you ensure that you get more diverse people into big positions? Well, number one, reconsider the need for a graduate degree.
So I'm looking forward to, going to the doctors, and they'll be like, which doctor? What do I do? I've got a really sore throat. Oh, well, you get this poisonous snake to bite your leg, obviously.
Yeah. But you can read through the rest of this if you want, but I think that says all it does. Just be aware that despite the fact that some people on the centre-right will be reporting that DEI, affirmative action initiatives, are finally being beaten, we're finally legislating against it, we're finally winning, lads. No, the monster simply sheds its skin and renames itself, rebrands itself. This stuff is becoming more entrenched than ever. So be aware of that. And honestly, my suggestion is, for the most part, just disconnect from modern media wherever you can. Disconnect from modern consumer purchases wherever it's plausible for you to do so. Because I certainly don't want to be supporting any of this. If you can boycott, do boycott.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. If you'd like to support us and you enjoy the work we do and you want to help us keep the lights on, because of course we're demonetized on YouTube, go over to lotus.com, sign up for only £5 a month, and go and watch some of the amazing premium content there, such as Connor Tomlinson's interviews with fascinating people. He has previously interviewed ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss, but recently he has interviewed Mary Harrington, a kind of dissident feminist who recognises, as we do, that we are being governed by a uniparty and the state of affairs needs change. Also, while you're at it, go and follow us on Twitter at lotuseaters_com, and we will see you soon.